Welcome back to the Gentleman Syndicate. We got our guest here, Nelson Thomas, again, the CEO, Survivors Against Suicide, and a gentleman that I've worked with in the past. So, on today's episode, we're going to talk about loss and the impact of that on men and how that has played a part in our development and how we can possibly learn from those things to help us become better as men. So, without further ado, my brother, man, you seen one of my episodes. Kind of talked about Derek and everything, and the impact of that, and thinking about kind of the topic that we're talking about, the power of loss, man. You know, we operate in a world as men where what we do is everything. Like
Right,
how you bring food to the table, what you bring to the family unit, what you bring to the unit, to the team, all is what you do as a person and as a man, and what defines you. And so the impact of loss kind of rips us and strips us of that. And so, how we as men can kind of learn to corral around one another to
right,
to support each other during that is something that is not discussed about a lot. It's always
right,
don't cry, suck it up, buttercup. Do
right.
what you got to do as a young boy, as a man, but figure it out and keep pressing forward. So,
Right. I think
my
we
question.
live. I think we live in a society today that it's accepted a little bit more than it was when you and I were kids. When I was a kid, you didn't show emotions. You weren't allowed to show emotions, and I don't ever remember seeing my dad cry when I was a kid. As a matter of
Yeah,
fact, the only time I ever saw him cry was at my mom's funeral.
and
And
yeah.
go ahead.
Oh no, so and your mom, right? Kind of before you get into it, your mom, she had committed suicide.
Yes.
Okay, and
Yeah,
so
they had been married. They had been married for 35 years.
man,
Nine
that's
days.
awful.
They had had their 35th wedding anniversary 9 days before she died, and
Man,
it was tough. It was really really tough. And I only saw a tear, man. I didn't see tears. I saw a tear, and
so how did that impact you watching how your dad dealt with it?
um, I was so closed off in my own emotions in my own world at that time. I really didn't pay a whole lot of attention. Now my brother broke. My
Mm.
brother completely broke down and was crying on the casket and stuff like that. At that point, I didn't cry at the funeral. I had already done a lot of my shedding of tears before we got to Dallas because at the time, we were stationed at Why Not, My Not, lovely place.
Why not? Why not? Huh?
Why not, why not?
That's
And
Wyoming, right?
no,
Or,
North Dakota.
oh, North Dakota. Well, they seem
Yeah,
the
North
same to
Dakota.
me. So,
Yeah, they seem about the same. I've been to
yeah.
both. They're deserted. But anyway, so I had already done a lot of my crying up there, and then we came to Dallas and spent the week or the night at my brother's house, and then drove down from there. And it was when I got to Dallas of when we actually found out what had happened. They kept it kind of secret the night before, um, and then told us when we were in the car driving on the way, and I broke down pretty hard then, and I was crying and basically screaming at my dad of no, you're lying, this isn't really happening, that type of stuff. And from there I just kind of shut down with all emotions. I just didn't show emotion. I didn't feel it was necessary to um, show face at that time, so to speak.
So thinking back, right? kind of what you said as far as, holding it in and not showing the emotion. We're in a job, in the military as firemen, as folks that are sacrificing time away from our families to go out wherever Uncle Sam sends us. There's a high probability, depending on your job and whatever it is, that's going to be something that is part of the journey. So when I've always said this, right, when we hold it in, when we don't express it in some capacity that's good, it will eventually come out, right? Whatever's internal will become external, through anger, addiction, some type of negative behavior that impacts not only you, but the world. Because I've always said, men, we destroy the world around us compared to women, typically kind of destroy the world from within. How does that play out when you think about it now? Because I don't know how old you were when you heard that news.
Definitely. I was 30 when I heard the news. So I was an adult, but still needing my mother, if that makes any sense. I'm 48 now and I still need my mother. And
48.
I'm 48. I'm an old man.
You need to stop lying to the viewers, man.
I'm 48. I mean,
the only thing that's 48 is the hair on your chin, bro. You don't look 48.
I appreciate that.
You hold it well. Good job.
Thank you. But when we got back to Minot, we stayed in Texas for 2 weeks. We basically had to teach my dad how to pay the bills because he had no idea about the financial side of the marriage. She had taken care of all that for 35 years. So he was lost. He said, "How do I pay a bill?" And we were like, "Oh man." So we stayed back for extra week, and found all the stuff and taught him how to pay his bills. And it was interesting, to say the least. But when we got back, so I didn't show any emotions that whole time. And then when we got back to Minot, I went straight in the bottle. I called a bunch of my friends from the fire department, and I was like, "Hey," they're like, "What do you want?" And I was like, "Beer." I was like, bring it in troves. And they did. They filled up the kitchen. There were 30 packs all over the place. And back then, it was the most beautiful sight I had ever seen.
Right. You're like, I get to drown myself in these bottles, yeah.
Exactly. So I just started pounding beers for 3 days and ended up on the fourth morning, I ended up having alcohol withdrawals and ended up in the hospital. And they sent me to what they called 3C, which was downtown. And it was a mental health ward, basically, but it was for mental health. It was for alcohol addiction. It was for all that type of stuff. And I found myself there for 30 days. And at the time, it was probably the best thing that ever could have happened to me, because they allowed me to pour out my emotions and to really dig deep into what had happened and how it affected me, and the alcohol behind it and what we needed to do to get away from that. And it was a good thing. It was hard, but it was exactly what I needed at the time.
So when you think back, right, because you said you went to that ward, basically,
Right.
Was it an all men's group?
No, it was both.
So if you could break down the ratio, what would you say the ratio was?
Ooh. We're talking 2006, man. My memory doesn't go back that far. I would say probably half, maybe
About 50.
Yeah, about 50-50,
Okay.
But people were in and out so quickly. I mean, I was one of the only people that stayed the full 30. I mean, there were a lot of people who came in, and I remember one guy, he came in, and by the next morning he was gone. He had already kicked and left. And so me, I wanted to be there because, well, first of all, I didn't have a choice because the military said, okay, you're going to this thing. And but I wanted to be there. It was a good thing. It was a building thing. I had the afternoons off. I went fishing on the afternoons. I was outpatient, so that was a good thing. So
you got to go home.
Yeah, I got to go home.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so still got to. They were going to put me inpatient, and I said, look, I said, this is what just happened. I'm not trying to drink myself to death. I don't want to drink, but because of the suicide, I'm having a hard time being away from my wife and kid. So taking me away from them is only going to make it 10 times worse. And they're like, okay, we'll make you an outpatient. So by the grace of God, they made me an outpatient, and that was a blessing in itself. So
yeah, I see that as a blessing, but I also see that as a whole nother set of challenges, right? Because when you're outpatient, because I was outpatient, for PTSD or PTS, whatever people want to call it nowadays, but
right.
I was outpatient, and the hardest thing, it wasn't being in that setting, it was coming back to reality,
Right.
And I think for us as men, I think the reason why a lot of us as men, when we deal with loss, we internalize a lot of it is because we prioritize a lot of other things ahead of that.
Right.
Like, I still got to go to work. I still got to perform. I still have to execute the mission. I still have to support these kids. I still have to put in this. I still have to put in that. And, growing up, the circles that we were in, it was a circle of men or boys that we brought value to. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like, it's always centered around value, like if you were, 12th man on the basketball team, and that was your role. 12th
right.
man. You might not have been the number 1 or number 5, but you were the 12th man. And so, that level of value that you brought to that team also impacted the type of people that were around you at that time. And
Right.
so, like you kind of said, right, when you were in that outpatient, I think it broke down a lot of those walls of the type of people you would typically be around, or
Right.
the type of people you would typically open up to,
Right.
which, a lot of people say is being vulnerable. I say it's being authentic. And
Right.
I don't hate the word vulnerability, but I liken the word vulnerability to authenticity.
I like that word better. Yeah.
And authenticity for us as men is where we actually get to those feelings, is where we actually find where, we got to hit that hill, man. We got to, we got to hit that hill no matter what. And there's other men that are doing the same thing. They're just not talking about how shitty it is to get there. And so,
Right.
authenticity is kind of the word that I use now, more so than vulnerability, in the sense of being able to let down the guard with those who have no guard, because
Right.
we're always guarded. We're always, what can I do? What can I bring? What can a person take from us that makes them better? Right. That's the role of men. It's kind of sacrificial, in a sense. And I'm not saying that women don't do that, but like for men, that is like where we derive our value from. That the authority, the responsibility, the respect comes from what value you bring to the team and what you can do to increase the mission.
Right.
So I think, like you said, going to that outpatient shed a lot of those barriers and those walls that you had in your real life to actually become authentic, you know what I mean, with your
Right.
feelings and your emotions. So, talking about that loss and those things, right? Because you're a tech sergeant, right?
Then I was a staff sergeant.
Staff
You
sergeant.
mean when I met you?
No, when you were dealing with everything
I was a
after
staff
mother
sergeant.
class. So you're a staff sergeant. So you still, when you came back to ops, I'm assuming you came back to ops,
Right.
you still had people that you had to lead,
Yep.
right?
I
So how,
remember. I remember. Um, I remember getting a call. It was my second shift back, and they had me on rescue as the crew chief. And they paged me out, and they said, come to the alarm room. So I went up there, and he's like, man, I'm so sorry to send you out on this. And I was like, what's up? What do you got? And he said, we have a suicide attempt. I was like, ring it. Let's go. Like, I'm back on shift. I've got to work these things. It'll be fine. And we went to it. And when she walked out of the house, she was with the security forces personnel. And they said, or she even said, she was like, I did this just to get attention. Mm-hmm. And I remember the fire boiling in me. I was just so angry and so mad that somebody would do this to family or friends or whatever just to get attention. And I was so pissed off at that time that she had done that. And I had no business being mad, but just going through what I had gone through and knowing what it was like to actually lose somebody that way. Oh, I was boiling. I was so angry. And I just looked at the security forces guys and I was like, do y'all got it? Do you need me or do you need us? And he said, no, we're good. And I just turned around and said, we're gone. And we just turned around and left, because being in that environment and being around her and that type of stuff, not knowing what she was going to say. And I just knew that it wasn't a good idea to stay. So they didn't need us anymore. So we left, and it was that simple. But I remember to this day what that felt like, that I was so mad that she had done that and the way that it made me feel afterwards. And so
thinking about, at the bottom ticker, it says, Survivors Against Suicide, right?
Right.
You're dealing with the aftermath of once it's been completed, and you're also dealing with where people are looking for help.
Right.
I went through a course last week through TEACS, Texas A&M College, talking about peer support teams. And one of the things on that peer support teams they talk about is compassion fatigue.
Right.
And I believe that we as firefighters go through a lot of that. When you go to the same medicals, you go to the same, house, you already know before you even get to the house number that
right.
You're like, oh, here we go. We're doing this again.
Here we go. Same thing.
And it's the same thing for those people that attempt that to end their life, and they're really searching for help. So when you kind of like link both of those together now with what your organization is and you being a CEO, how does that make you think back or reflect back on back then to where you're at now? Because you've had a long journey in between all of that.
Right. Well, now I look at it and I'm like, you know what? What is it? 75% of the suicide calls that first responders respond to is actually attempts, but not actual suicides. So I'm getting those numbers off. I know I'm getting the numbers off, which I should get those right by now. But or false calls, basically. Mm-hmm. I'm not mad at her anymore, man. I ain't got nothing but love for her. But at that time, having gone through, it was so fresh. I was very, very angry at that time. Now, I wish the best for her. I hope she's still alive. I hope she's still doing okay. But having been someone who has attempted suicide myself, I never really talked about suicide much. I didn't bring it out. I mean, I think I talked about it a few times to my then wife, and had talked about some of my feelings and stuff, but I didn't talk about that to friends or other family or anything like that. I kept it within. So when I attempted, it was real. It was 3 attempts. It was the first one was trying to drown myself on the coast of Okinawa. The second one was I used a weapon, a gun, or tried to use a gun, and that was foiled by my then wife. And then the last time I tried to hang myself.
Yeah.
And so all three of those, they were no joke. Like all three of them, they were foiled by someone either jumping in the way or doing something or getting a phone call when I had my hand on the rope. I mean, they were all legitimate trials. And to look back on that, you know, there was a time I was like, I hated that I went through it. Dude, I can't tell you how much of a blessing it is that I went through those. I can't tell you how I hate to use the word happy. But if there's another word, tell me. But to know that I went through those things and can use those to talk to somebody else that's going through the same type of situation.
Oh, you're empowered now.
Yeah.
It was something that empowered you.
I have all that experience to be able to say, you know, a lot of people talk about, and we kind of changed from loss to suicide, and I apologize for that. But
oh no, it's the same thing though.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? One's completed and one you're going through it.
Right. Anyway, when you're going through that experience, a lot of people are like, well, I don't know what I was feeling at the time. Or I've heard a lot of other people say that they just wanted silence. That's what I wanted. I wanted silence. There were voices in my head that were speaking to me, screaming at me and telling me things to do and telling me you're not loved and nobody loves you and nobody appreciates you. And it would just be better if you're gone. A lot of the times, because all three of these situations happened post my mother's suicide. So it was my head screaming at me. And I remember to this day on one, it kept screaming at me saying, you're supposed to follow her. You're supposed to follow her. And all I wanted was silence, man. I just wanted the voices to be gone, and I wanted peace. And I think that's the majority of people who go through this type of stuff. That's what they want. They want peace. They want silence from whatever's going on. And I have heard of a few people, and basically in leaving notes and stuff like that, that they've done it just to teach people a lesson or to get back at people, or I'll show you. And man, I hate that. I hate that anybody would ever think that way, you know, because life is so short, but it's so simple. It's so many people, you know, we as men, we're not supposed to talk about love, man. Love, what? That's stupid shit. You don't talk about love, dude. Everything that we do in life is supposed to be about love. It's supposed to be taking care of one another, loving one another, appreciating one another, you know, and to know that there's those types of feelings, it really hurts me to know that people feel that way. I didn't understand it back then, but now I understand it, that everything in my being, everything that I'm about and what I'm supposed to be doing is supposed to be loving and taking care of other people. That's what it's all about.
Yeah. And you know, when you kind of hit on it, man, we had a dude in Lodgeville who, you know, he hung himself at work. You know what I mean? And, like when you think about it, you know, you imagine you going into work and then your coworker that you were working with is just hanging there, like right in front of the door as you come in, you know, and like thinking back, it's like, what was going on in his mind when he decided to do that? Kind of like what you're saying, you know, like I'm going to get back at these people, or, you know, whatever, you guys want to mess with me, boom, boom, boom. This is how I'm going to get back. And I think that, like, you kind of went through the most authentic that you could have felt at the time was to feel nothing.
Right.
And so for you to feel the need to try and do that 3 times in particular, and of course, everything that you're saying with, hearing it, that is what the power of authenticity means. There's a yin and yang to this. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
there's the power of what we can do as being vulnerable, quote unquote, or authentic, to be able to relate with one another and grow with one another and show one another and be there. Or there's the power of authenticity to be like, you know what? Screw the world. Nobody cares about me. This is what the world thinks about me, anyways. And they're just like, boom, I'm done. I'm over
Right.
it. Like, I'm just gonna check out. And so it's kind of interesting when you kind of bring all that to light, and talking about that. And we're still talking about loss, by the way, because
Right.
um, when you look at your life, and if any of the viewers just look at the bottom screen that says Survivors Against Suicide, and they're hearing you and they're seeing you and hearing your journey of the things that you've gone through, well, you went through those things that empowered you to be where you're at right now. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like, to start this organization, to have a voice, for the people that are out there, because like you said, it's about, the living. And I hate to say it, and I don't mean to say it in any kind of way, but you know, once that casket is closed, and that dirt is thrown on that casket,
Yeah.
um, life doesn't stop.
Right.
And we as humans, as men and women,
Absolutely.
we get so caught up in that moment. That moment right there becomes the most powerful moment. But if we don't have the right people around us, it can turn into the most negative moment that is a catalyst for everything else that we do, and destroy our lives and destroy our families and all that stuff, man. So you're where you're at now because of what you've gone through, but now you're leveraging what you've gone through as a testament, for those that, that might have those same thoughts. Because, like you said, your mother she completed it, and then the thoughts went to you, and then you tried
Right.
it and tried it and tried it, and eventually, after you hit rock bottom and you found God and you found the place that you need to go, you kind of got into your organization. And
Right.
so, like, it's real powerful to sit and think about it, when it's like, what is the purpose of what we go through, right? What is the purpose of loss? What is the purpose of going through the pain that we go through? Well, the purpose is to use that as something that we can empower ourselves for those ahead of us, and those around us, and those behind us. You know
Right.
what I mean? And I tell that to the young firefighters, now, like, hey man, your job, man, is to be the best that you can, because I'm going in this building with you. I need you to be on your game, because I might need you to protect me. You know what I
Right.
mean? Vice versa. And we're that team together. We're a cohesive unit.
Right.
And that's what makes, our jobs, special forces, communities, so, on another tier of emotion, in like service, because it's about what we do to our left and our right, and for them, and how we can impact the mission, the team, the unit going forward. It's not about the individual anymore. That's what makes our job so much more unique than a lot of other jobs. Is it's not about what I'm doing at Martell. It's about what we do on the team, and how we can impact the, environment that we're going into. So, yeah, man, it's a powerful thing that you've started this organization. It's a powerful thing to hear you come from where you've come from, to even have this channel, to, Survivors Against Suicide, man. It's crazy, you know what I mean? Because not a lot of people talk about it. Nobody,
Right.
nobody that's attempted it talks about it. And the people that complete it don't talk about it. It
Right.
just happens. You know what I mean? Like, you see the irony of that, you know what I mean? Like, you
Right.
just don't talk about it. You don't connect, you don't, find the right people. And then eventually you're just like, screw it. It's just me. I'm alone. I'm disconnected from the world. So
Right.
yeah, yeah, man. I appreciate you talking about it, man.
It's it's funny to a point because it's almost become comfortable. You talk about it so much, and you read so much stuff about it. In the school that I'm going through right now is I'm going to get my master's degree in counseling, and a lot of what we read about is suicide and stuff like that, and emotions and bipolar and anxiety and all this other type of stuff that we read about and learn about. And it's almost gotten comfortable to be able to talk about stuff like this, because you know that you are making a difference. There's going to be one person, man, at least one person that's going to listen to this and listening to this right now. And it's like, man, that guy's talking to me. That guy, he and Hunt, or I always call you Hunt, Martell.
Hey, some people used to call me Big Daddy, man. You know what I mean? No, I'm just kidding.
Well, I ain't going to tell you what I called you when. No, I'm kidding. Back in the day, no, I'm kidding. But there's going to be one person at least who's listening to this, and it's like, that guy's talking to me. That guy is talking about a situation that I'm currently going through or have gone through in the past. And that makes it comfortable for me to be able to talk about this stuff, to know that we're making a difference and that we're making a positive standout for someone else. You know, that's exactly why you're doing the Gentleman Syndicate. You're trying to make it better for somebody else going through the bullshit that we've gone through, you know? And so it sucks. And believe me when I tell you, man, there's days I don't want to talk about suicide. I don't even want to think about it, but I find myself somehow, some way, either talking about it or writing about it or journaling about it or something like that, to be able to assist people in the long run. And that's, like I said, that's love, man. That's reaching out, that's taking care of people, and that's putting yourself out there and getting past, like you said, the vulnerabilities, or what's the word you used?
Authenticity.
That's bringing out the authenticity and showing people who you truly are and the rawness of what you've gone through. That's what life is all about.
Because it becomes our pain, our points, our sticking points of pain and suffering might be a pivot point for someone to grow from, you know, might be, you know, an insight in the, you know, oh, this is how this person dealt with this, and this is, you know, what they were kind of going through, you know what I mean? And like,
right.
when we really like get to the nitty gritty of what it is that we're here to do, which is to learn how to grow, in part of growth, right? Just like lobsters, just like diamonds, it comes from being under pressure. You know,
Right.
You got to be under pressure to truly grow, because without that pressure, you know, we wouldn't be able to have life experience. We wouldn't be able to pass down that knowledge, man. I've kind of said it, man, like it's a weird thing, you know, and you can take this one weird way or another, but you know, when you think about like men and women, you know, a woman's pain comes through the birth of a child. You know what I mean? Like in that moment, in those moments. And for us as men, our pain is something that is a consistent thing that goes through life, because we're to bear some of those labors, not in delivering the baby, but of life, and being able to try and make it easier for the wives, easier for the children, easier for those behind us, man. You know what I mean? And so as men, as we become more experienced and gain more wisdom throughout life and time, you know, we start being able to really pay it forward in return to those behind us.
Right.
And it's a weird thing how that works, man. And it's something that I've kind of always thought about, and just being like, why is it that we go through what we go through? You know, because when we were 20 years old, you know, 18 years old, 17 years old, we thought we were invincible. You know what I mean? Nothing could touch us. No man could say anything against us. But then, you know, that's what our dad.
10 foot tall and bulletproof. That's what I always thought.
Yeah, that's what our fathers were supposed to be for, right? to my
Yeah.
dad, he knocked some sense into me a lot. You know what I mean? Because he was the one to give you that boundary of left and right and let you know, like, hey, you ain't the biggest, baddest one out there. But there's a
Right.
reason for that. You know what I mean? Those knocks and those lumps and those stumps and those falls is to give us a better perspective that, hey, it's not about you. It's about what we're responsible for. And
Right.
I think we as men, when we go through pain and we deal with it, I think we lose sight of that a lot of times. I think, like you were kind of talking about before, when people do complete it, I think they've gotten to the point, for men in particular, that they've lost their purpose. They've
Right.
lost what that actually is, because that's what we
Yeah.
drive off of. Our driving force, our nature's purpose driven. And when we lose momentum, which is what we're supposed to do as men to be able to go through to the next phase of life, and we stop realizing that we have a purpose, then guess what, man? Dudes are just like, I'm out, because we have a high suicide. We have a high rate where men are doing it.
Right.
They've lost that purpose. And,
Right.
2024, COVID-19, all these things have had such a huge impact on keeping people separated.
Right.
That separation for men, a lot of men would say, oh, I'm good alone. I can die alone with a dog, but in reality, they all say that. Just buy a dog. They all need something. They need to have a purpose still.
Right.
Every man still has a purpose, So that's what it means for us as men, is we got to find that purpose and maintain that purpose and use it. And for you've turned it into what you have right now.
Right.
And that's a powerful thing that, I know it's tough, it's hard to find a way to recharge and to refocus and to get into it. But, that's what we do as men. And
Right.
that's what, my father would say, suck it up, buttercup, not in the sense of it didn't happen, but in the sense of use it, learn it, leverage it,
Right.
let it fuel you, let it be your energy to be better for those around
Right.
you. So yeah, that's good, man. Loss is a powerful thing, man. It sucks in the moment. It sucks, months after, years after. But, it makes, when we're in the present right now, like what we're doing, it makes what we're doing in the present with our wives, our kids, and those that we love, it makes that so much more meaningful.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because you've heard that old adage, right? Like, you don't understand what you've lost until it's gone.
Well, it's gone. Right.
Until it's gone, that's what loss does for us, man. And it's almost like that reminder of letting you know, man, screw the past, screw the future. Sometimes it's about now. And what can we
Right.
do now? And how can we influence the now? And
Right.
that's something that I've been learning and going through. And yeah, man. So it's tough. But I'm glad people like you have what you got with your organization about, man. But
Okay.
yeah, you're onto something, brother, man. So, keep pressing forward what you're doing. I think there's something out there, man, for sure.
I was excited yesterday. I haven't looked at so I wrote a book, and then I'm in the middle of kind of rewriting it and putting more stuff into it and rebranding it. And I haven't touched that in probably 6 months. And I started piecing stuff together or moving stuff around and looking at it. And I was like, oh, I can use this here. I can do this here. I can type this here. And I started rearranging the book again. And I was like, God, that feels good to be doing something like that. So hopefully there's somebody listening that's like, man, you know what? I've thought about writing a book. I can do that. You can do it. I promise you can do it.
Yeah.
If I can do it, as dumb as I am, if I can do it, you can do it.
You know what? Hey, it's 2024, man. Hey, I can do it for me.
That's funny.
No,
That's funny.
But yeah,
it gives you a purpose and a sense of
Oh, yeah.
completion when you do
Yeah.
something like that.
100%.
I remember the first time The first time that I was I was leaving Okinawa. We were leaving Okinawa and we were getting packed up and getting ready to move, and the package of books came in. And I remember I've still got the picture of it, the very first day that I held my own book and took a picture of it, and the way that it felt, and to know that I had used mom's tragedy to do something with it and put it on a positive note and everything meant so much. So again, there's somebody else that's listening that's like, man, I've always thought about doing that. Oh, you can do it. Trust me. You can do it. If I can do it, you can do it. And don't talk about AI. We don't need to go through AI.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Yeah. Well, brother, man, this is a good conversation, man. And this is still one of many. We still have a lot more to discuss, a lot more to go through. I want to give my thanks. Do you have any last parting words?
No, I'm good, man.
Okay, well, thanks for tuning in to the Gentleman's Syndicate. Thank you to Nelson Thomas. Check out his page, survivorsagainstsuicide.org. He's an author, father, firefighter, retired. I don't know what you're doing now, but it doesn't matter. It's something good either way, man. So,
school, man, it's all about school right now.
Right. That's right. Yeah. School. So, like I said, like and subscribe to the channel. I appreciate y'all for the opportunity. And signing off. All right, brother, man. Appreciate you.
All right. Later, man.